This is the real Hawaii.
That was Daddy's day. Jimmy Witch Project style and the late ones will tell you.
Aloha friends, we're here today with Robert, former tour guide with Oahu Ghost Tours. All right, well let's jump right into it. We're going to talk about the top 5 most haunted places on Oahu.
You cannot talk about the top 5 haunted places on Oahu without at least including 2 specific spots, and we're talking about the new one, Upali. So a tremendous battle took place in which many warriors fought tooth and nail. The culmination of the battle took place at the new one, Upali Lookout, which really was about a 700-foot cliff face in which Kalani Kapuli's forces of about 300 to 400 men knew they would make their final stand. They fought bravely, but there was no escape for most of them from that sheer cliff face. So many of them ended up jumping because they did not want to risk being captured, because if you're captured, often you'd be used for human sacrifice, which was a much more perhaps brutal way of dying than jumping over the edge of the cliff. So a lot of these warriors returned there at night because they still believe that that is where the battle is taking place, and for some of them that was where home was. Now when you're talking about maybe the second most, maybe 1A and 1B, where we're standing right now is called Morgan's Corner. There was a couple that would come here and they would basically, I think this was 70s or 80s, they would make out often because this is a popular makeout area here. And one night as they're making out, all of a sudden they hear this very strange sound echoing from the roadway and back. It sounded like a jump rope hitting the pavement. They look out the rear view window. They see what appears to be a 13 or so year old girl jumping rope down the road, and they're thinking, wait a minute, it's somewhere between 11 and 12 at night, this girl's jumping rope down the road. But as the girl jumps rope closer and closer, all of a sudden they see that she has no chin, just bone, and most of her face is eaten away. Now they're screaming, let's get out of here. The girlfriend says to the boyfriend, hurry up honey, get the car started, let's get out of here. But they realize in that moment, the car just doesn't start. So they're in a full-scale panic trying to get the car started as this girl jumps rope closer and closer, and they scream as they see her go right to the front of the car. As soon as she puts her hands on the hood of the car, she disappears. The car starts right up. This couple takes off, leaves, never to return again. But you see, one night as Dr. Grant is sharing this story to his tour group, one of the members of the tour group steps up and says, you know what, Dr. Grant? I'm a retired police officer and I know that story really well. He said that in the late 60s, there used to be a road that would run through here that was a bypass road, and it would go all the way to Kailua where there was a popular drive-in. And so this young man, he was a well-known high school football player. He asked a high school freshman girl who had been quite enamored with him out on a date one night, and she was of course quite excited. And so they went out to a date at the drive-in. They had a good time, but on the way back she expected to be taken straight home on the main highway. But when he turned down this area here, she began to panic, saying, no, I don't want to be here. You know, I know this spot, I know what it's for, but I want to just go home. But he was being more insistent on, you know, sort of getting his way. And she became more frightened, he became more forceful with her. And eventually she began to sort of fight back, and he became angry and he slapped her around saying, what are you doing? You know what this is all about? And in her panic, she smacked him across the face and he became enraged. He began to choke her and scream at her, what are you doing? What are you doing? And all these kind of foul language words. All of a sudden, he grabbed something, wrapped it around her and began swearing at her. Then she went limp. So he dragged her, her bag, the jump rope, took her out in here, threw her down, left. And this officer who was telling the story to Dr. Grant says, I was one of the responding officers. When we first got here, the body was face down in the mud and it looked like nothing had happened. It was just like a fresh crime. But when the medical examiner came here a little while later, they asked us to turn over the body, and that's when we realized all the ground bugs had eaten away the lower part of her face. So we believe that this girl is still unrested and still haunting the area. Now,
see, let me show them real quick. This is what you call in Hawaii chicken skin.
Yeah.
See
Goosebumps are instead chicken skin, indeed. Let's talk about the back of Manoa Valley. Very spooky haunted spot. You see, Manoa Valley was part of an old ahupua'a. An ahupua'a was a section of a Hawaiian community. Now, back of Manoa Valley is said to be a hunting spot of the well-known night marchers. So chiefs would often go marching And when they went marching to sacred places or places of battle or places of gatherings, they would have often their kahunas, their warriors go ahead of them to sort of blow the conch shells, do the drums, do the chanting, so the people know that the chief was coming, so they could either take due caution and come out and pay respect, or if they were far away, they would know to stay far from the location so that they could honor the chiefs by not getting in the way of the chief. And it is said now, as in the now in the afterlife, the chiefs continue to march on certain nights. So if you're walking in the valley for whatever reason and you start to hear the marching, the conch shells blowing, they say, of course, that you as a commoner should get out of the way, or if for some reason you're not able to leave the area, you could try what they did in the old days, which is to prostrate yourself face down in the mud. Other people say you prostrate yourself face up, looking straight up. Others have said you have to basically prostrate yourself butt, take off all your clothes, and to show humbleness before them. So many stories talk about people being found dead on the side of the road, perhaps having had an encounter with the night marchers. So they said in the back of the Valley of Manoa there is a night marcher trail, and many stories of residents hearing the drums, hearing the conch shells blowing. Now let me tell you of one spot that is very well known but very wonderful, because we don't want to make it all about spooks, because entities are not saying we want to go out and spook people. It just happens that often there's misunderstanding, perhaps they sense disrespect. So it's not about these entities purposely spooking people. But let me tell you about a wonderful spot. There is a place called the Manoa Cemetery. In the smack dab in the middle of that cemetery, right behind the Grand Ancestor's tomb, which is of course Lam Ching's tomb, there's this great big banyan tree that grows, a Chinese banyan tree that they put there. It's sort of like in a circle because nothing in the center of the tree grows. People who have gone in the banyan tree and have gone in there and relaxed have felt this tremendous surge of energy, as if somebody has been holding their hands, somebody has been hugging them. Perhaps they smelled the person around them. And when people have taken pictures, often you'll see either images of faces, orbs, or other wonderful things surrounding them. So that is a wonderful paranormal experience people have enjoyed. And I guess, you could choose from a number of types of hauntings, but the last one I'm going to choose for you is a well-known one that took place, I guess you could say, starting off in the late 50s, if I remember correctly. You see, at that time, the Wailai Kahala DriveIn was being built by this developer. Not long after opening night, I'd say maybe a couple weeks or so, during the intermission break, a group of young ladies said, let's go to the bathroom and get ourselves together, then we can go order something from the concession. But as she exits her bathroom stall, she notices standing in front of the sink, facing the mirror, but having her head down, was a tall Japanese lady wearing a sort of a traditional kimono, which is not unusual in Hawaii per se, but at a drive-in movie theater, that's a little bit unusual. So she expected the lady to wash her hand and move on, but it was clear after a few seconds that this lady wasn't doing anything. So she said, excuse me, miss, do you mind if I wash my hands? I need to go and join my friends. Didn't get a response. So she thought, okay, maybe the lady's just sort of doing her own thing. So she decided to go tap the lady on the shoulder, and that seemed to do the trick, because the lady began to stand straight up and slowly turn towards her. And that revealed the fact this lady had no face. As you can imagine, this young lady came screaming out of the bathroom. She tripped over the door jamb, knocked herself out by landing face first. She recalls waking up, being driven to the hospital, and that's when she told her friends about what was known as the first of the Faceless Lady hauntings. So it is believed by many that some young lady in the old times had brought dishonor upon her family, and she had essentially lost face, and now upon her death she felt that she had kept that tremendous burden of losing face on her, that is how she still manifests in the afterlife. So even today, even though the drive-in is no longer there, in and around the graveyard area, people have seen this Faceless Lady in front of the bus stop there, and some people say in the mall across the street in the bathrooms there, they still see this Faceless Lady. So folks, if you're coming to Hawaii, you like the supernatural, you like the paranormal, it's everywhere. One thing though, yeah? Wherever you go, please practice respect. And what I mean by that is, do not go there trying to stir things up. Go there humbly, ask for things nicely, as if you're going to someone's house and say, do you mind if I come here and look? Please do not mind my intrusion. If I'm bothering you, please let me know by some sign. Respect goes a long way, not only dealing with people who are living, but believe it or not, those who are no longer with us on this plane.
Absolutely. I think me personally, I would rather have the kind of experiences you talked about in the banyan tree in the Manoa Cemetery than some of the other ones. I don't want any part of those.
No.
So I will definitely come and respect. We want to thank Robert for your time and for your wealth of information.
I want to thank you, Dan, for allowing me to come on. And, you know, for those of you who are checking out these islands, hook up with Dan. He knows a lot of these spots here, and he'll show you a good time and teach you.
Not sure if this was our own supernatural experience or not, but right at this moment, our microphones died. But just gotta finish by saying, remember, this is the real haunted Hawaii. Aloha.